Hi, this is Reverend Dave Johnson, and you're watching Sequentially Yours.
Hey there, welcome to Sequentially Yours, initially mine. This is a show where we look at this week's number ones and tell you which ones will keep you running and which ones will just be stop and go. Alright, so we have a decent amount of things this week, and I was surprised for a strange reason. We'll see why in a minute, but let's get right into it, shall we? Alright, so, start of this week's number ones, we have The Three Stooges number one. I was actually kind of excited about this. I like old-time slapstick. I was never a huge Stooges fan, but I watched them. I enjoyed them. I was more of an Abbott and Costello Marx Brothers guy. And maybe it's because of that I see so quickly the flaws in this. First of all, the timing on it is really, really bad. And when you don't have comedic timing, The Three Stooges is just a lot of people being abused. It's really... Timing is so important on this, pacing is so important on this, and it just doesn't work. It's a series of, shorts, the same way that you would expect from The Three Stooges. Some of them are not bad. They're all very kind of in line with the Stooge oeuvre. The first one was not great, partially because, and this is a coloring thing, and I'm now going to say something about coloring that I wasn't a big fan of. The coloring on this one was Adrian Ropp. And basically the Stooges get a job working in a fast food joint. But the problem is that the fast food joint is dinosaur-based, so everything is kind of green, and Larry's shirt is green at the beginning. And this just serves to highlight that their skin tone also has everybody's skin tone has a really green tinge to it. I don't know why or where this is coming from, but it's really off-putting. Otherwise, you had a few different things here. They were done in different styles, which I liked. Some of them were a little bit, some of them were a little bit of an older... Oh, no wonder, because it was a four-color comic. One of them was an older style, but it was a four-color from 1961. So it was a reprint, so it doesn't really count. Otherwise, it tries to bring the Stooges into the modern era, and it doesn't really work all that well. About the one that really worked for me is that there is one of these that is a parody of the one-page Hostess fruit pie ads with the Stooges. That was hilarious. That one worked really well. The rest of them... Alright, so I'm going to let you in on this little secret, guys. Apparently the people who made this were big Stooges fans, which I'm not sure of because they might have realized then that what makes the Stooges funny is that they are the only dumb ones in the scene. They are the dumbest people around. And unfortunately, for a lot of these stories, everybody else has to be dumb. Except for the 1961 one that got it spot on. Everybody else has to be as stupid as they are. It's the anti-Marx Brothers, really, where the Marx Brothers were always the smartest guys in the room. The Stooges, because they're the Stooges, it's in the name, are the dumbest guys in the room always. One of the stories involves them all as mall security, who are, I guess, living in the mall. And they wake up, and suddenly they see a horde of zombies in the mall, and they get chased around. At the end, somebody yells cut, and it was all a movie set. And the actors, zombie actors, thought that they were supposed to chase the security guards, so they chased these security guards. This went on for several minutes without the director noticing, who then yelled at the Stooges for wasting a whole day's worth of film on, what was probably a 5-minute run when he didn't know to say stop and his actors didn't know who the actors they were supposed to be chasing were, and nobody informed the security at the mall about... No, it's... If you really have to make the situation that out of the way, then you fail the Stooges story. You can have slapstick, you can have ridiculous stuff, but the setup has to work, it has to make sense within a context. It's then that you can build all the silliness, and this just doesn't do it, so... Sorry, guys. Next! Jade Street Protection Services. This has a really kind of interesting story to it, and at first it doesn't tell you what it is at first, but a couple pages in you eventually get it, and it does a good job of building the story to that point, introducing us to the characters and giving us a little bit of mystery for a couple of pages before telling us that basically Jade Street Protection Services, this is about that has not actually happened yet, but starts at a school, an academy for what appears to be magical girls. And all of these girls have, powers that are contained in gems and channeled through an item or weapon of some sort. And you get to see them kind of in their magical girl training. A bunch of them get detention. They decide to sneak out to get kebabs instead. And they see their teacher downtown, follow her around, found out that a girl who disappeared at one point, this teacher is selling her magical item. And it becomes an interesting kind of mystery to it. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes, sorta. I don't know if I'm actually going to bother reading this because, again, the pacing was really off. Sometimes it moves very, very fast, sometimes it moves very, very slow. The tone was so all over the place. I mean, while this whole thing with the teachers going down and they're spying on her, one of them makes friends with a cockroach and names it, and another one decides, oh, it's snack time, and eats an apple while they're hiding there for reasons? Why? Why did that happen? It is so tonally off, and at this point they're implying that this girl may have been killed or severed from her magic or whatever that means, and we're having friggin' slapstick? That's what's going on here? What? Pick a tone, decide on something. If this is going to be silly, make it silly with, a girl who apparently can create giant items, and because she had to pee before class, create a giant toilet. What? It's dumb, but if it were in line with the tone of the rest of it, I would accept it. I wouldn't think it was funny, because there's a lot of jokes like that are all kind of stupid. But at the very least, I would be like, all right, well, that's what they're going for. At least it's part of it. But the thing is that there's also some really kind of wonky stuff going on here, and some really kind of serious parts that are just broken up by really inappropriate humor, is what it boils down to. And yes, you need to add levity to lighten a mood every once in a while, but man, does this not know how to do that appropriately. The cover is a lot cooler than the interior, but the interior is not bad. The art is a little flat, but it'll do. Our narrator, I think, is kind of cool in that she doesn't speak. She can't speak. She can text, but she can't, she can narrate to us, but she can't speak out loud, which we don't know why yet, and I think that's kind of interesting. I'm curious about that. But, oh, man, the parts that don't work, and I really hate saying this about this because I like seeing a female-led multicultural cast like this. That's a nice thing to see in comics, and so rare. But because of the pacing and because of these weird tonal shifts, I'm having trouble getting into it. Sorry, Jade Street Protection Services. I don't think that I'm going to come back to it now that I've talked about it so long. Let's move on. Let's move right along here. Indoctrination. I'm not sure what this is about. It's about cops and a serial killer and an actor, maybe. I don't know. The character models all look basically the same. It's all dull and dark, so it's hard to tell. And again, the pacing is so off that sometimes it jumps scenes without telling us. And my least favorite was the page where it jumped to an entirely new character from one side of the page to the other. And then on the other side of the page is where we actually get to see the headline that says that we have now switched locations. So, and because the character models are so similar to each other, it kind of looked like they just changed clothes in between panels and decided to talk about something else. It's really not well planned out. I feel like they were trying to do a series of vignettes They were trying to make it look like almost a police procedural, but sort of maybe a police procedural is directed by David Finch, where we're just getting like a little bit here, and then it moves on to the next one, and moves on to the next one, and we just keep moving along from vignette to vignette until it all kind of coalesces together. But A, we never got the coalescing. B, I'm not sure what's going on with this villain, but he's got a thing with snakes, which, oh yeah, helpful. They hire a guy out of prison who used to work with the serial killer that they're looking for, who may or may not be able to teleport. It was just not good. I'm sorry, but Indoctrination was just not good. It was lazily plotted, and while I'm sure these characters are supposed to be really, really exciting, instead we get a load of archetypes that don't even measure up to their potential, their interest. It's not worth it. Forget Indoctrination. I really hope you got that sound effect on there, because it hit something that was on a spring, and it was kind of a great sound effect. I hope you guys got that. Alright, so, next. The Sweetness. Alright, so, The Sweetness, again, doesn't know how to do tone or pacing very well. It's not quite sure what kind of comic it wants to be. Does it want to be a comedy? Does it want to be a space action flick? Does it want to be a drama? It seems like all of the characters are each inhabiting their own genre, and as a result, their interactions are a bit of a mess. Essentially, it's about two people who are hired on to pilot a ship that contains both colonists and prisoners in cryogenic sleep, and they also have a former prisoner who has a shock collar, because she's a former prisoner, who is the liaison to the colony, and the three of them are on a 6-month journey to do this. There's vomit jokes. One of them is smuggling stuff, but he's not very good at it, and the former prisoner agrees to help him out for a cut of the price, which he shock collars her for. There's a lot of crotch jokes, just, the fact that they exist, that's really funny, I guess, to whoever wrote and drew this, At the beginning, there were aliens that attacked a diner, and then were disappeared, basically. Some people came in and killed the aliens, and, kind of, what am I thinking of? Kind of, set it all on fire to hide all the evidence, and I'm like, okay, cool, so I guess this takes place in our world, but then we have regular trips to colonies, so I'm like, what's going on here? I don't know. I don't think this book knows what it wants to be. And that's kind of the big problem, is that it has no idea where it wants to go or what it wants to do with these characters. It has no idea what it wants these characters to be about. Are we supposed to, the smuggler guy, are we supposed to feel for him? Are we supposed to hate him? I think we're supposed to hate him because he keeps shocking the prisoner woman, Nellie, I think her name was. But on the other hand, I'm not sure that we're really supposed to hate him, because it spends a lot of time making him sympathetic. Is he supposed to be ambiguous? Because if he's supposed to be ambiguous, then why are we getting sympathetic all in one place and hatred all in another, instead of a kind of blend of them both? I don't understand his motivations, but he's too pathetic to truly hate. The third character is just there to, I don't know, drink and have sex so that we can have boobs in one panel. That's what she's there for. I don't know. She's not really important to the plot. She's just sort of there. If you cut her out of this entirely, again, we would have fewer boobs and fewer jokes about drinking. It's a bit juvenile. It just does not work. It doesn't fit. It doesn't tell a story at all. And again, it happens in such amazing little cuts that I'm not sure what's happening where or to whom or in what order. Is this a flashback? Is it a flash forward? Who knows? It's not. The mystery should not be trying to solve the book. The mystery should be trying to solve the plot. And that's what we're going on here. There is a mystery element to it, in that things were being put on the ship, and I think we were supposed to think that they are bad, but on the other hand, nobody seems to notice or mind. So maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's how it was presented. So yeah, the sweetness, not worth your time. I wonder if I can keep hitting that thing. Well, I won't have to, because we're down to our number one book. And our number one book for this week is Cryptocracy. Alright, so the premise of Cryptocracy is all of your conspiracy theories are right. There is, in fact, an Illuminati-style group called the Cryptocracy, which has a number of different circles and is really a combination of various families, all named after planets. You know, like Mars and Jupiter seem to be the two big ones. And I guess they have magic powers. That happens at the end. Otherwise, it's high technology. I'm going to start with whoever did this inside cover. I'm gonna show you this inside cover for a second here. See how it has a description of all the circles? It's first circle, all the people of Earth. Second circle, and it describes who is in each circle. It's wrong. It is actually not correct based on what's in the story according to the very first page. Like, whoever did the cover art... Who did the cover art on this? Pete Woods. Pete Woods, did you read the script? Did you look at the script at all? I mean, just even a cursory glance... Like, the first page. Did you look at the first page of the script? Because then you wouldn't have gotten this wrong. 9 families rule the world, each adheres to a strict organizational structure. And that's correct. Otherwise, it's not a bad book. But I'm going to be honest, this was the first book I read this week. And I finished and I said, well, I'm sure that'll be somewhere in the middle. I'll get to say something nice about it and move on. I had no idea that this would be the best book of the week. And it's partially due to similar problems that we've already had. The pacing is way off. Way, way off. The character introductions are okay. We get to see who they are and get a general idea of how they work. There's some silliness to it, but the silliness is integrated into the tone really well, and I will give them credit for that. For example, the main character's partner is a sentient bear who wears like a trench coat and a fedora. Sure, I'll go for that. Why not? Sentient bear. I am totally behind sentient bear. There's a conspiracy theory radio show that's hosted by a young woman who basically goes to people's houses and sits on their patio and uses their Wi-Fi to broadcast. Okay, sure, why not? And it does have a lot of really good ideas in here. Some ideas that I'm really just kind of flat out behind. One of my favorites being that the conspiracies that we think of, things like the Illuminati and the Rosicrucians, are various levels of initiation into this cryptocracy, and people will reach those levels, and each time they kind of think that they're at the top. Like, yes, this is it. This is the big thing, and we're totally in control. Oh no, other people are more powerful than we are. And they just keep learning this a little bit at a time when they can. Of course, there's a point where you actually have to be born into the families, as far as I can tell, to actually be part of certain levels. But still, that's kind of nifty. I like that idea. The action is done appropriately. There is definitely death and killing and whatnot. I'm fine with that, but it happens in a way that is tasteful. We don't see, people having their brains blown out on the page. I like that. I think that's better than just kind of showing it happen. They introduce new villains here at the end, which the big problem is that they didn't spend enough time establishing these characters, so when the villains do show up, I don't care enough about the characters to see it, or more to the point, the world, to see this as a significant shake of the status quo. I don't know the status quo, so when they're talking about somebody attacked as not one of the other families, I don't really know that much about the families already, so as far as I know, there could be thousands of groups out there that aren't the family, and it's just the tone of the statement that is kind of getting me to understand this. It doesn't really work all that well. I always talk about in a number one, it should tell a complete story, and this sort of does. There is 2 or 3 pages that I think would have made a really good complete story if they had done it, if they had broken it up differently. Show us what's happening with our main character and his bear friend, his bear partner, I guess. Show us that story here that happens in about 2 or 3 pages, and break it up with flashbacks to other things. Learning about, for example, one of the things I think is kind of cool is that Roswell happened, and we made contact with gray aliens, and they can scrub people's memories, and that's part of how the cryptocracy keeps itself secret. Kind of nifty. Great idea. Show us that. Show us the character who is prejudiced against bears. Show us, show us this radio host, and just, change the pacing, change the approach to the storytelling. I think this would have been a little bit better, would have felt like a complete story, and then at the end we get this teaser with this new group. And also somewhere along the way we could also get more information on these families and why they exist and how they maintain their power structure. I think that would have worked a little bit better. That being said, the elements for the most part are in here. Minus the family thing, minus the not knowing the background before changing the background, it works. The characters are likable. The story is interesting. It has enough levity in there that I don't feel like I'm being bogged down by this story. But on the other hand, it also takes itself seriously and takes its world seriously. So, yeah, Cryptocracy. Oh, and in the back we also had a journal entry from 1908 that was kind of nice, that kind of ties in and gives us a little bit more background. Though not the kind of background that you need to really understand this story, but still a little bit more background, and I'm a world-building geek. I'm totally okay with that world-building. And this was just funny. Protect yourself from thought invasion, step-by-step guide to making a tinfoil hat. That's kind of in the back here. And it encourages you to post it with the hashtag Cryptocracy, which, well done, using the internet to help support your comic. If it's not necessary, but it's a fun little game that people can play. What I'd really like to see is a Cryptocracy, websites with cryptogram games and conspiracy stories and just, supplementary material that you could really play with. And I know that's asking a lot, but I mean, it's Dark Horse Comics published this. Surely they have somebody there that could do this, because I think that could really make this more than just an obscure comic. Make it a really kind of big thing that people can interact with and fall into. The story itself does not actually make me immerse myself in this tale, but because it takes place in our world, and because it's all about conspiracies and secret governments and all of that, you could make this sort of an augmented reality comic very, very easily and really kind of help people pull into this world. I think it would be great. So here, Van Jensen and Pete Woods did, I guess, the art and writing on it, and yeah, these guys were great. It, like I said, for the most part, other than the fact that Mr. Woods did not read the book when he created the thing, or maybe, I don't know, maybe this is part of the Cryptocracy that some people don't even know what their hierarchy is. I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt here. It's worth a read. If you get a chance, check it out. It's worth a read. Alright, so, you might have figured it out by now, but I think it's time that we talk about the oddly incongruous theme for the week. This week's oddly incongruous theme is bad pacing. It is just painful to me as a writer, as somebody who has read extensively, to see all of the books this week not knowing how to tell a story that moves us along but gives us time to breathe. Not knowing how to tell us the things that we need to know. before moving on or jumping around. It is painful to see, but that's what happened this week. I don't know what to tell you. I'm glad that we're getting another new comic book day soon, so that maybe there will be something better. I don't know what your opinion on anything is on any of these is going to be, but these were initially mine. Take care.